he needs to go?
Well, I'm not sure exactly which one you're referring to.
John Conyers.
With John Conyers, look, I think it's complicated. I think we don't know all of the facts yet. I think if he actually did engage in sexual misconduct, then he should. I think we need to draw the line. I think we need to believe the accusers. I think it's about changing the culture. Women are now just starting to feel comfortable coming forward in a way they never have before, and we need to encourage that. This is not a partisan issue. We need to hold the same standards across the board.
So what about Roy Moore? Do you believe that if he is elected, that he should be removed?
I do. I think that the things that he is accused of, I think that the things that he is accused of are so egregious, and he'll never be tried in a court of law because these were happening a long time ago. But everything that we see from the people around him to the parents of the women that he tried to date when they were teenagers, it's not like he's tried to deny any of this. And we're in a place where we're deciding what kind of leaders we're willing to elect. And if we're willing to overlook the fact that he was regularly, I'll put in quotes, dating teenagers.
I hear you. Look, I'm not sticking up for anything that he's been charged of, but the point is that we don't know. And that's a problem when we start sort of adjudicating these cases just, through the media. That's a bit of a problem. But, when you talk about the fact that one of the women in the affidavit with John Conyers said that her duties were to keep a list of women, this is in an affidavit, that I assumed he was having affairs with and call them at his request and, if necessary, have them flown in using congressional resources. So this is the tricky territory that we're in, Dana.
It is, Martha, but it's usually believe all women, but terms and conditions apply. And those terms and conditions, Martha, are if the accused is a Democrat. Because with John Conyers, taxpayer checks cleared in order. Yeah, I'm going to finish. Thank you, Martha. Taxpayer checks cleared for John Conyers. John Conyers was accused of firing women because they didn't give in to his sexual demands. And taxpayer funds were used to hide this. With Congressman Grijalva, here you had $48,000, over $48,000 of taxpayer funds that were used to shush up these victims. And taxpayers who are a party to this entire process are told to keep our noses out of it. So, yes, John Conyers needs to go. Congressman Grijalva needs to go. These individuals are supposed to be trusted with the power of the purse. We, the people, invest our trust in them, and they have proven to be unworthy of that responsibility and that trust. And the same standard should apply. And here we have a money trail. So, yes, the same standard applies. If they got to go, they have to go. And I would love to see the same people who are saying all of this stuff about Roy Moore apply these exact same principles, Martha, to Grijalva, to Conyers, and everywhere else. If Roy Moore had driven a woman and left her to drown in a pond, he'd be hailed as the Lion of the Senate.
Emily?
Yeah. I mean, I would like to respond to that. I actually think it's exactly the opposite of what I said, that we should, the more we make this a partisan issue, the less it becomes about believing the people who are coming forward. We need to create a culture where women are comfortable coming forward. And Congress has very bad rules around sexual assault.
Can I interject?
They made their own
because
rules.
Do you know why this is a partisan issue? I got to interject here. Do you know why this is a partisan issue? Because Nancy Pelosi called John Conyers an icon. Do you know why women have trouble coming forward? Because Nancy Pelosi, your party's minority leader, called this man an icon, because your party circles the wagons around this perv NATO that is happening within your party in Washington, D.C.
President Trump has 17 women accusing him, and every one of them he says is lying. I think that starts from the top.
Is your party leadership wrong? She called him an icon.
Right,
Do you disagree with Nancy
Emily,
Pelosi?
let her respond. Emily, go ahead.
Look, I don't think she should have gone that far, to be honest with you. But I think there has been a very strong reaction over the last year culturally when the country was willing to say, look, we see that there are 17 accusers of sexual assault against a presidential candidate, and we're willing to elect him anyway. A lot of people had very strong reactions to that, and it did change things culturally. We have to remember that most of the victims of workplace sexual assault, they're not going to get in front of a camera. They're not going to get national attention. They're low-wage workers. It's when there's a massive power imbalance.
All right. You know what, though? And I say this every time we talk about this segment.
This is the party that defended Bill Clinton, Bob Filner, Anthony Weiner, John Conyers. You guys have no moral authority.
I mean, Anthony Weiner just, had his due process in court. And that is something that we need to keep in mind with these cases. They're not all the same. You can't group them all in one big group and sweep them with a broad brush. And we do have to be wary of that part of this story in terms of the men who are accused as well.
I totally agree.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Emily and Dana, great to see you both tonight. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Martha.
As we continue, another woman is accusing Congressman Conyers of sexual misconduct. According to reports, this accuser served as Conyers' deputy chief of staff between 1997 and 2005. She claims Conyers touched her inappropriately on at least 3 occasions, including one time when she says Conyers placed his hands under her dress. We've reached out to Conyers' office for comment on this woman's claims, but they have yet to respond to our request. And also over the weekend, political commentator Cokie Roberts made this startling comment about Conyers' reputation on the Hill. This is pretty shocking. Watch this.
I mean, the culture of Capitol Hill for so many decades was men being bad. We all talked about for years.
A little bit at a time.
Well, you know, don't get in the elevator with him, you know, and every female in the press corps knew that, right? Don't get in the elevator with him. Now people are saying.
So what are people to do? What is the right thing to do? Because we see a lot of hypocrisy. For 30 years, a lot of your Democratic friends, they were part of a smear, slander, besmirching attack against all the Clinton women. And by the way, it ends up he was a predator. But they did it for 30 years. In the case of politics, some people say, Nancy Pelosi, well, John Conyers now deserves due process. But nobody gave Roy Moore due process when he denied the allegations, serious as they were. What is the right thing to do here?
Well, look, this doesn't look too good for Congressman Conyers. I mean, he's already been forced to resign his position on the Judiciary Committee.
Not forced, he said voluntarily.
Okay,
you not believe him?
He's resigning from his position, and I think the right thing to do here is to investigate and take these people's story. And if we've got situations where members of Congress are reaching settlements where they're paying people not to tell their stories, and that's at taxpayer expense, I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy.
Right? Pay with your own money.
Absolutely. I think it's just such a miscarriage of justice, and it's a gross misappropriation of taxpayer funds that the hardworking men and women of this country have to pay for the misdeeds, the sexual misconduct, the sexual harassment of members of Congress that then get to continue in office and sweep it under the rug and pretend to serve the people when they're really serving themselves and asking someone else to pay for their sins. I mean, it's totally inappropriate, and I don't know why Nancy Pelosi would go out on a limb like this, Austin, and try to defend this man and say that he's iconic and say that he is someone who is a champion of women when it's far from the truth.
Austin?
Well, I was agreeing with you all the way until the very end.
Okay.
And it is outrageous, and they should make public whoever received this kind of money and made these settlements, no matter what party they're in, they should reveal that information, and those people should be punished. Now, to try to turn this, if there is a double standard, the double standard thus far has been, though small, there have been some consequences to the Democrats. In Roy Moore's case, there have been no consequences. In the president's case, there have been no consequences. So I think we should either apply consequences to everyone and investigate all of them, or, well, that's what we should do.
Well, right.
I don't think the sweeping it under the rug is the right thing.
Yeah, well, as a former prosecutor, I'm all for due process and actually determining the facts and the truth of what transpired. But how about people like Conyers who have settled cases and admitted wrongdoing and, in fact, have agreed that they have done these misdeeds? That is a very different case from somebody who contests it and still hasn't adjudicated it or determined, in fact, what happened, especially when it's over a long period of time in the past. So that, to me, is a distinction with a difference that should be observed and paid attention to.
What about
Yes, but it doesn't mean we should ignore. You know, if in Roy Moore's case, he's accused of really felony pedophilia as well as other very serious crimes. And we should look into that. We shouldn't just say because he said he didn't do it, therefore we shouldn't pursue it.
Well, no one's saying not to look into it, but he's entitled to have that actually investigated and determined. I mean, how can you do that in a
But that goes for John Conyers too, though, right? I mean, I'm even saying
cases like this. If you were to bring a case like this in front of the district attorney's office, etc., if there's a case of sexual misconduct or sexual assault of a criminal level, you would actually get a jury by your peers, and you would get a full and thorough investigation. And you don't see that in a lot of these cases. A wide spectrum of conduct, and sometimes in some of the the cases, we see an accusation is enough to, in fact, convict someone essentially.
But the bottom line, Austin, is the Democratic Party defended the predatory behavior of Bill, and they did everything they could do to slander every woman in that case. Drag $100 through a trailer park. You don't know what you're going to find. So many examples.
Look, I don't think they should be proud if that's what they did. They shouldn't be proud of it. And when Republicans defended Clarence Thomas, they shouldn't be proud of that either. Now, the question is today, what are we going to do?
Clarence Thomas to Bill Clinton? Clarence Thomas was
I'm saying there are many cases. They should. I'm not going to defend if that's what they did. They should be embarrassed by that behavior. The question is, today, what should we do?
30 years,
and I think you and I agree, Sean, and Kimberly agrees, we should go after finding out this information.
Okay, so you agree that in the case of Bill Clinton, they should have handled that better. They shouldn't have smeared the women and actually
I think they should have handled it better, and I think they should be embarrassed by the way they handled it.
It's so convenient now that the Clintons have no power because they all the liberals defended him up until and including all last year.
I wasn't in the administration.
Okay, yeah, okay. You don't read a news